Hi everyone, this is Adam Hops from the National Operations Center of Excellence. Thanks for joining us for September's Talking TIM webinar. As you know, this is part of a long-standing series from FHWA, working with TIM programs from around the country to present best practices that are going on and share them with the rest of the TIM community. We have a fantastic program here for you today. As you can see up on the screen, I wanted to do a couple quick plugs and some ground rules from my end before I hand it over to Paul Joden and Jim Ostrich. Here at NOCO, as many of you know, our TSMOR Awards program is currently underway. Submissions are due by October 11th. Last year we had some fantastic traffic incident management award submissions, even a few winners around hurricane and the traveler notification from several different states, pen time included. So please take a look at that TSMO Awards link down there at the useful links section at the bottom of your screen. Submissions are due October 11th. Last year, all 60 submissions were turned into case studies, which I'm sure many of you have seen being rolled out by us over the last 6 months or so. There's a link there on your screen to show you where all the case studies are. So it's worth submitting even if you don't win. We take all your fantastic work and turn it into a case study that you can brag about and share with everybody else. So October 11th for those awards, and be sure to take a look at and submit your best traffic incident management ideas. After that shameless plug, I will turn it over to Paul Joden to introduce today's speakers, and thank you again to FHWA for consistently bringing such fantastic content around traffic incident management. Paul?
Thank you, Adam, and thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate the participation, and I really appreciate your help and some things happening on the fly here, and your letting people know about these TSMO awards, because we did have, I think it was Oregon. Did they win last year, I think? And
correct.
So well-deserved, and there's plenty of well-deserved folks that could be recognized. And I guess you submit on your own. You can submit for your own program, right, Adam?
Correct. Yep.
You don't have to submit from someone else's program, but so that's tremendous, and we look forward to seeing all those. I don't have really a lot of updates. Next month we will have a lot of updates. One thing I did want to share with everybody with more information on next month's webinar is the self-assessment results are in. We have, as a nation, the national average score is up 2.9%, which is tremendous. Usually with 90 or 100 submissions, it's hard to move percentage points, but we use 2.9%. So many of you participated in that and participated in getting the national scores updated. I urge you all to look at your self-assessments for your particular area and see which one or two things you can work on for next year. That's always a good approach because of that structure that the self-assessment provides. We also have several other things that we're working on that we're just on the cusp of announcing. We are having our summit. We hope in the second week of November. There's a little hiccup there, but I'll be providing some more information on that. But we do have senior people from throughout the country coming in to Washington on that Responder Week, that Thursday and Friday, culminating with an event on. But we are reaching out to a bunch of different organizations that we normally aren't our traditional partners, but all have a place at the table when we're talking traffic incident management. National League of Cities, National Governors Association, League of Counties, some Road to Zero organizations, and to name a few. So just expanding on the outreach, if you will. We also have a marketing and outreach contract that we'll be sharing more information about next month as well. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my partner in crime, Mr. Jim Ostrich. Jim?
Thanks, Paul. Just a real quick radio check here. Can you read me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. And well, welcome to all. Just so much we could say. Paul and I thanking you, the National TIM community, certainly the Center for Excellence, Adam Hops and the team for hosting this. Great news on the training side here. As I move forward the slides here very quickly, we like to include the an update on the training, but worth always starting with is the responder struck by fatality slide here. That's actually at 31. So it doesn't reflect an additional law enforcement officer in Colorado that I just added or was going to add to the slide, but just FYI, we're actually at 31. And worth repeating always and keeping in the back of our minds why we're doing the things that we're doing, training our responder community. And the great news, as I said, as far as the training, that we're now over the 430,000 mark nationwide, and kudos to all of you for all the work that continues in the National TIM training program. Happy to report too that we now have 117 public safety academies in 36 states. It's 117 total, and there's many hundreds more to come, but I think you may have heard me mention this, that as far as institutionalization, what you all are doing, many of you, a single person with your contacts within your public safety arena have made this a reality. So keep doing those great things. And next slide here, I kept it this time just to give you a snapshot of the train-to-trainer sessions. You've heard me repeat that a lot of you are sponsoring your own state-led train-to-trainer sessions, but so far since summer of 2012, the nation has conducted 439 train-to-trainers. Boy, today I'm really slipping. Sorry about that. Anyway, next slide here is the slide showing the trained, in-person trained number above the one in the total to be trained above the percentage that has been trained below, and broken out. You in your state know what the challenges are. There are some states I've noticed, I won't mention. Paul and I have noticed some slowdowns. So if you're on today's webinar and you know that you've been having some challenges with getting your trainers, instructors in your state engaged, please have a discussion and try to get things going, because Federal Highway, Paul and I and the team are not giving up on you. We want you to keep charging ahead so we can one day reach that million plus, 2 million, whatever it is, responders trained. Here's the slide showing the total trained by state. I'm not going to belabor it, but certainly thanks to your work, as I said. This is the infamous map showing the percentages. We're still, I believe, at 18 states that have reached the 45% or greater responders trained. Kudos to those states. And again, underscores the work to be done. Paul mentioned the summit that we're getting ready to conduct in about 6 weeks, and the executives and leaders, CEOs that are coming, I mean, if it was up to Paul, we'd have all of you attend, but This is really at the highest levels of police, fire, rescue, EMS, towing, transportation, public works that are attending this summit, and it's the third of its kind, and we're really going to engage on your behalf, the National TIM community, in terms of the training and technologies, public outreach, legislation, and all these different things that you have accomplished. This is the bar chart showing the numbers broken down by discipline. We do sincerely believe that the 1.158 million that we estimate based on the numbers, the national numbers by state, is really a low number. So keep that in mind always, that there's just so much more work to be done. Next slide here is just a reminder of National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week coming up, November 10th through the 16th. The summit actually falls on the 14th and 15th of November. So during that week, very apropos, we planned it that way. And the next planning call for those of you that are joining us, our regular attendees, we're encouraging, Paul and I, we want to get all 50 states, DC, and Puerto Rico engaged in some level of activity. You've heard us say before, so this is just a reminder. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Katie Belmore. All of you know Katie from our contractor team now for many years, to give an update on TIM training materials that we want to make you aware of. So with that, Katie.
Thanks, Jim. We just wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about the update. And for those of you, just as a reminder, we had the online post-course assessment tool, and that was actually taken offline on March 1st. So we had some next steps that we had put forth after that was done. And the first was we put together an evaluation results summary, and you can kind of see a snapshot of that there on the screen. And overall, we got very, very positive feedback through the tool and got some good statistics that are there. So this is available. It was distributed, but if you need a copy, certainly, I believe it's up on the FHWA website. But as part of that, we also wanted to make some minor updates to the TIM training materials because it had references to that online tool, and we didn't want to be referencing people to a tool that was no longer available. So we did go ahead and update the materials. It was a minor update. We just wanted to take care of that. We just did one or two other things at the same time. And we dated this August 2019, and it's just version 3.1, and this table just summarizes the changes that we made to the PowerPoint. We just updated NFPA's standard, changed a little bit, so we made sure that was consistent. We actually had a slide about unified command that came out of some of our state-specific work. We have to thank Virginia, and they just had a better version of our slides, so we wanted to put that in there. We got replacement. There were a couple old web links, and then, of course, the main thing that we wanted to do was to remove that slide at the end that told people how to get to the online tool. Now, we still kept the pre-test questions within the PowerPoint because those are still useful learning items, but we just didn't want people to think that they could go online. So the third part of what we did was make sure that all the surveys, well, at least the evaluation form and then the pre-test and the post-test, there are paper versions of all that, so we wanted to make sure we made those available to everyone. So we made quite a few updates, and all of those updates are on the SharePoint site. So this is just a screenshot of if you go to the site and then you click on training materials, these are the different folders that we have up there. If you wanted a copy of the evaluation summary, that's in the TIM Training Program Publications folder. But I specifically wanted to just point everybody to Sorry, I lost the script thing. Okay. I just want to point everybody to the Responder Training Materials folder, and that's where you can see we have the evaluation form, the post-test, the pre-test. It also has this updated version 3.1 of the training PowerPoint. We updated the student handout to make sure the last page no longer has reference to the tool. And then what we did with the extra space is we just expanded on the directions to get to the NHI and the ResponderSafety.com Learning Network online versions of the training. So those instructions are a little bit more detailed and easier to follow now that we have more space there. If you're looking for the, we also updated the Train the Trainer PowerPoint as well as the manual that goes along with that, and you can just find that in the Train the Trainer folder here. And I just wanted to, as long as we're showing you what's on the SharePoint site, just remind everybody that the current status report and maps is always updated in there every 2 weeks, so you can go in there, and if you wanted to look back all the way, I think it goes back to 2015, and look at how the difference, that's all in that, all the archives are in that folder as well. And then the last thing I'll just point out is we also updated the TIM Training SharePoint site user guide. So happy to send that to anybody who needs a copy of it. I think that was the main thing we wanted to cover, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Super important, everything you shared there regarding the TIM Training SharePoint site. Remains a great resource and part of the program for sure and moving forward. So Paul, Adam, are you guys who's taking it from here? Is this Ellen?
I'll take it from here, sir. No.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep. So Katie, do you have a copy of that final report that we did that we can put on,
yes.
that Adam can put on the, yeah, if Adam, maybe Adam, you could make it available to everyone on the webinar. So the, we made a 300-page report. No, just kidding. We made a very short and concise report on the results of the evaluations that we did over several years, and they're phenomenal. They really are. To get responders to respond honestly, they'll give you their honest opinion about the training. We know that, and they did, and it came back very, very positive results that we got from the evaluations, and we evaluated at 4 different levels, which I won't go into now. But the short document that we have is very user friendly, and we did that intentionally. And so if Katie can give it to Adam and he can pop it up, I recommend you take a look at it. If not, go on our website and take a look. And then thirdly, Jim or I and Katie can give it to you if you reach out to her. With that, we'll move on to Mr. John McClellan, who's going to talk to us about Minnesota. And John is a very handsome fellow, as you see right there. But he is also the Freeway Operations Center at Minnesota's DOT's Regional Transportation Management Center. That's a lot of people don't know, but it's one of the top ITS programs in the country with their coverage and their technology and the things that they've done. John's worked at the DOT since 2002. He is not an engineer, so he moved himself up in spite of that. John's group is responsible for monitoring 1,000 freeway traffic cameras, locating incidents, deploying overhead signs, coordinating response with State Patrol, and which they have integrated CAD there, which is one of many reasons why I love John. He has a lot of knowledge, and we call on him for a number of different topics: the training, integrated CAD, ITS, service patrols. So he's a go-to guy. John offered this as a recommendation of what he could share on how he uses the videos for responder training. So with that, John, if you don't mind taking it away.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Paul. Everybody hear me okay?
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. I really appreciate it. So what I'll talk about, I'll try to go through this pretty quick, stay on time, because I know we got some other folks with great stuff coming up too. So what I'm talking about is short video clips. either used in a PowerPoint in a presentation or strung together with some finessing and as part of more of a produced training video. Specifically cable median barrier and TMC traffic camera video. And you know, everybody loves video. Video tells a story. Video is a great way to get information out. The other thing that I'll add to it for us in Minnesota is that it's really been, the use of video has really been key as far as being able to deal with the limited resources that we have. I mean, very limited resources, and we wouldn't be able to do gotten as far as where we have without the use of video. So high tension cable median barrier certainly has come up last few years as one with a lot of desire for training material. I've been working on trying to do training in Minnesota last 11 years or so, gather best practices from the vendors, from the responders, for maintenance, and trying to push this out in Minnesota to the responders. So extremely valuable. We've had it in Minnesota 2004, 2005. We are into the, I think, over the 10,000 number of hits in the cable. I think I could easily say we are into the hundreds of lives saved. That screen capture was from a road rage situation, and there's an SUV going into the median, and at the angle he was going, he for sure would have plowed into that other SUV head on. If it wasn't a fatal, it's at least a serious and a prolonged extrication. Cable stopped it. All good, nobody hurt. Rare for issues with the cable. I mean, the most common thing certainly is the towers and having to do a lot of extra messing around in order to get a vehicle out. For responders, I'm aware of a half dozen or so uninjured patients that couldn't easily self-extricate because the cable was blocking the doors, so they had to climb through a window or do something a little bit more. I mean, it may have happened already, and if it hasn't happened already, it will happen where there will be a need for fire, for rescue to extricate around the cable or disabling the cable. And it's dangerous. It has, it's under extreme amount of tension. If something breaks, if something goes wrong, if somebody's in the wrong place, cuts the wrong thing, it can kill people. We haven't had anybody killed, but we have had people hurt. We have had at least one fairly serious injury that came when a piece broke off. So it is dangerous, or it can be. And hands-on isn't practical. I mean, there's a number of people that are going to mess around with it. The towers, fire, it's not practical to do hands-on, at least not for us, to do hands-on for everybody who could benefit from the training. So my tip, my suggestion, something that's worked good for me, watch out for major construction projects. Is there cable in the, like big interchange rebuilds, is there cable in the area? Does the project get rid of the cable? And if it does, hey, can I come out and take it down and use that taking it down to gather video for training, for best practices? And so far, I've done this half dozen or so times. I'll reach out to the DOT's project manager. They'll go to the prime. They'll go to the sub. And if everybody is good, everybody's thumbs up, then it proceeds. And so far, not any problem. Everybody, once you tell them what it is that you're doing, this is for public safety, it's for responders, everybody's, oh yeah, sure, that's not a problem. The most common thing that's happened for me is, oh yeah, you can take it down, it's not a problem, but you got to do it by next week. And the only way to, maybe the only way to get in there as well, there's a lane closure. It's coming in a couple of days at night. There's a nighttime lane closure. You can come and do it then, or you know, otherwise it's got to be done the next couple of days. So you got to be able to move fast. MnDOT has a training video crew, or a crew that goes and does training video. They're great guys. They do a hell of a job, but they're booked out a couple of months in advance. And I don't have a budget to hire somebody. I don't have a budget to pay somebody overtime. So it's basically, I mean, me going out and doing it myself, it isn't that hard. I would suggest this to other folks too. It is possible. It's not that hard. You can go and do this too. So scope it out, supply the cameras, do the video editing. Again, this is just 20, 30-second clips, maybe up to a minute. So goal is to capture best practices. It is not a department or regional hands-on. It is not everybody come out here and get to stare at it, or you're working alongside live traffic on the freeway, so trying to really keep the impact to as minimal as possible. My invite list is the subject expert, which is basically the maintenance supervisor, somebody with the experience to say, cut that, don't cut that, here's what will happen, don't do that, stand over here. The person who actually knows the who knows it, and then my actors, the people who are going to be the ones doing the video, depending on who it is. If it's fire, if it's patrol pushing something down, if it's the service patrol, then have those reps there. For fire, it's 1 or 2 fire trucks carrying whatever is universal. The goal is not to train that city's department, it's to use them as the actors to then demonstrate to everybody else, here's how you do it. Plus, there's a benefit to them that they get to have that hands-on. And certainly if you can get some people to help out, if not with the cameras, or at least keeping an eye open, watching for things, that's great too. Some other suggestions just on the video side, if you're going to do this yourself, go out there beforehand, a couple of days before, bring your camera, get some B-roll, get some stills, as much as you can, because it's all going to look different when it comes down, and you never know exactly what thing it is you're going to wish that you had to illustrate a certain point that you're not going to know about until after you put it all together. So go out ahead of time and get some video. For camera equipment, a couple of GoPros, and they don't have to be the brand new ones. They can be older ones. If you don't have it, your kids don't have it, somebody in your office's kids has probably got a GoPro or 2 that you can borrow. As long as it's HD, doesn't need to be 4K, 8K, whatever. Otherwise, you're getting them used a couple $100, pretty easy. So I'll do a couple of GoPros. You can stick it on a bumper, you can stick it on the helmet, you can get that first-person view. Then a second one a little further back for the retraction. The other nice thing is if something goes crazy, it's just the camera getting knocked down. It's not a person. And then I'll have a third camera that on a monopod or tripod that is kind of your in-between, and that's the one that you can move around to make sure you're catching exactly what it is that you want to get. Get extra video, get extra footage. More cameras is great. You get more things, more views. You're never sure exactly which one's going to be the one you want. Just don't go too crazy, because if you're the one person that's doing this, you don't want to overcomplicate it either. One big one, and this was kind of a big duh for us, that when we did one of these a couple of months ago, and like everybody's all standing by waiting for it to retract, and well, that wasn't as dramatic as we thought it was. Like, well, yeah, duh, it was just the native tension on the cable. We didn't have the extra tension on it that a crash would have. That's why it wasn't so dramatic. So in this case, this was a follow-up one, just using the service patrol, cranking the cable a little bit out of line. That put some tension on the cable. It's still not quite as much as what you'd get if it was actually a crash. So another suggestion would be to, if it's not your service patrol, even better be a tow truck. Crank it out of line. Even better than that, if you really have the opportunity to do it, a loader, a dump, something like that with some chains, really pull it out of line to simulate kind of the extremes of what you're going to see. And I forgot to mention this before, but when your maintenance folks comes out, bring a tension meter and get tension on the cable before you take it down too. That's another good measure to have to tell you and to tell folks here's what to expect when it retracts. And note what the temperatures are, and this is a big one that I have to remind people if I'm showing this. Especially the cold weather folks, and there's a huge difference between how the cable is going to react when it's 60, 70, 80 degrees out than when it's 20 below zero. It gets a lot angrier, it gets a lot scarier when it's cold. And the colder it is, the angrier and the scarier it gets. So that's going to be a hard one to really simulate. I don't think I want to go out there when it's 20 below zero and shoot this video, but it is just one of those things to keep in mind for the cold weather folks. Get out there early, be prepared for site issues. I know with one of these, everything looked great. Get out there the day of, and the contractor put a whole bunch of J-barrier right next to the cable. Oh my God! But everybody's good. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy to work with you as long as you're telling them what it's for and got somebody to go and move it. And then the best practices stuff. With a couple of these ones that we've done, you got the manufacturer says, well, you do it this way. You can get our own maintenance folks say, oh yeah, you do it this way. You try it and like, this doesn't work. What the heck are we doing wrong? Well, it just isn't working. And that's a great way to learn, hey, even the best practices, and it really kind of helps, get it straight in your head, get it straight in your training. What is the most comprehensive things to tell people to keep it simple as far as how to react to it, how to work with it. So that's on the cable. The other thing I'll mention is TMC traffic camera video. So only a small handful of states record. Minnesota is one of those. For all of the non-DOT people on the phone, if you want to trigger your favorite TMC person, just mention traffic camera video recording and see what they say. Minnesota's recorded for some time. It started out as being individual DVRs and worked its way up. I think 2008, 2009 is when we switched to all the cameras being recorded. So the value balance the hassle. Well, it's a great tool for training. It's a great tool for outreach, but it is a big pain in the butt. And I can say that because I'm the one who advocated for recording it for a lot for training and for incident management. And I'm also the guy who gets stuck dealing with it. All of the requests come through me for the metro area, about 1,600 a year. And I've got some help from one of my dispatchers to help with a subset of them, but yeah, it's an hour or two a day that I'm now spending doing video requests. So there's the downside of it. But as you can see, it is a fundamental part of our TIM training. I mean, back to 2003, when we first, was really advocating it and getting examples of things. A 2-hour ex-urban fire department, that's about 32 clips, just for examples of some recent ones. St. Paul, so there's a city, a urban department, it's a 3-hour, 72 clips. And then a 45-minute to hour-long cable barrier PowerPoint, that's about 25 clips. So you can see how much it gets used. All right, so what's the values? The biggest value one of the biggest values that I found is it builds a connection. And I tell folks when I do the training, like, yeah, I'm working in an office looking at screens, but we watch people crash every day, all day long, and this is how they do it. This is the piece that I can bring to you that's maybe a different view. I'm not a cop, I'm not a firefighter, not an EMT, but here's what I can bring to you is how this stuff happens, because we watch it all day, every day, and so do my folks. So here's what we see. Everybody loves video, too, is another part of it. How crashes happen. And this is, one of these things that it's not random. It's arbitrary is maybe the best word I can think of it. And basically, it's human error is the polite way of saying it. The reality is it's somebody doing something stupid at a time. And whether it's so stupid of a thing that a crash is inevitable, or it's a couple of people doing something stupid at the same time and place that now they crash into each other, or it's doing something stupid every day and getting away with it until your luck runs out or the weather changes and the margin of error shrinks to a point where something bad happens. And really illustrating that these aren't unique occurrences, that how these crashes happen. You show why good traffic control is needed for the good drivers, the ones that are paying attention and on the good side of the curve, at least at that moment. And then why you need blocking. You show examples of cars just driving into stopped vehicles, driving into stopped traffic, driving into stalled vehicles, going off the road, driving through red lights. This is the reality. Doesn't matter how many flashing lights you have. If somebody's not paying attention, they're going to drive into you, and that's why you need blocking. All right, so what to show examples of good traffic control. So I'll show as they roll up and set up a scene. Also show, and for the most part, you show these clips and they're obvious enough that even somebody with minimal training can like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you show examples of bad stuff, and it's like, what are they doing? What's the point? Can anybody in this room answer what the purpose is of what's being done right now? And you show examples of that. And then, of course, the crazy stuff, especially responders, are all like, oh my God, that's nuts. I can't believe that just happened. That's crazy. So a few questions or a few items, I guess, for thought, for discussion. Ohio, and if you noticed on YouTube, you noticed a lot of things back. A lot of the squad hits that you see on video and you see in training come from Ohio, and you also see them on the Goofy TV shows too. And several years ago, I made a point of trying to kind of pin this down. Why are so many of these coming from Ohio? And I talked to somebody at Ohio State Patrol, and I said, well, our colonel or our commander at that time said, I want to make a real effort to get video out and publicize it to show people reality of what happens. So the result, that's why they come from Ohio, and it's great video. And if I want an example illustrating, like in this one, why passenger side approach is better than driver side approach, I'm going to have a lot better luck getting Ohio video than I'm going to get Minnesota State Patrol video. So something for the community, especially in the law enforcement side, is there opportunities to do what Ohio is doing, to follow that example, at least within the training community, because it is good video, it is useful, it does reach other responders, and it helps click with them. For the, for us with our collection of videos, the other states that record, the squad video, how can we as a group, all of us within the training community, how can we share this stuff? So we're not having to try to look through YouTube or somebody sees a news report and then you have to spend time trying to figure out some way to extract that video and then get it into your own presentation. Is there better ways to share this right from what the source is? And you need context. You need context and background. The big one is, oh my God, it's a horrible video. Did anybody die? And you want to be able to answer that honestly. What are the learning points? Are we all on the same page with this particular clip? Is this really showing? Are we all saying the same thing? And attribution is always good. Where did this come from? Who provided it? So how do we do that? That's my thought. My question for others in the training community. How do we better share this media as a resource? For the DOT folks, one thing I will mention, I know the whole idea of saving, recording traffic video, it's a scary thought. It's a lot of work. It's a big pain in the butt. One thing I will mention is that, and I know some folks have gotten pressured to record and have held the line on it, we are on this brink of this huge explosion in data with connected vehicles. And from what I've seen with just with the requests I get for traffic camera video, this is just, if you're a DOT and you're pulling in data, you're sending data out, you're going to want to save that data, you're going to want to analyze that data. That also means you're going to get requests for that data. I have a feeling, this is something that all of us are going to have to keep in mind on the DOT side is how we organize and how we process these requests, because it's coming and it's going to be interesting. Just a couple other things I'll mention. As far as the video editing goes, Windows Movie Maker is great. It's not in the current versions of Windows, or in Windows you can still find an executable that installs it for Windows 10. Very simple. Very easy. That's what I do a lot of, just quick and dirty editing in for training. OpenShot is another free one, open source program that's out there, a lot more comprehensive, a lot more tools in it. And then a couple of examples of professionally done ones. SceneSafe was one that we did in Minnesota about 5 years ago. It's a 30-minute program. That was through a contractor that put that together. Has some examples of traffic camera video along with interviews, along with squad video, all kind of merged together. And then the cable barrier training is about 14 minutes long, and that's a mixture of the stuff I was talking about in the field and then some traffic camera video. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Paul.
Thank you, John. Nice job as usual. So we'll hold off on questions until the end, although you can feel free to ask John questions in the chat pod or anybody, any of our presenters. But I want to make sure we get everyone in, so which we should have plenty of time at the end, but I'd prefer to wait. So I'm just wondering, Angela, I know you were in a legislative session. Did you make it on?
I am.
Okay. All right. So hold on. Let me introduce you then. So,
okay.
So Angela Bonnet, Roper Bonnet, is actually an old friend of Jim and I's. She's not that old. You can tell by her picture, but she's going to sound old when I read all this stuff. But she is the executive director of the Arizona Towing Association and former executive director of the International Towing and Recovery Museum in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Many of you may be familiar with that. But she's been involved in the towing industry since 1997, owning 2 tow truck companies in Texas. That's when I knew you, I think, when you were in Texas. Over the years, Angela has found herself involved in everything towing or safety-related. Angela started by becoming involved in her Texas Towing Association, moving up to being involved in many committees with the Towing and Recovery Association of America, to eventually becoming the 3rd vice president. I didn't know that. In 2007, she was named Tow Woman of the Year. I didn't know that either. Congratulations, Angela. Long time ago. But she led the committee that produced 2 safety videos for the towing industry. Very cool. And she served on the Women's Towing Recovery Association board for 2 terms. But you know, the biggest contribution, the reason why Jim and I know her so much, is she's participated with devoting her time to safety and education, and an instructor for the American Traffic Safety Services Association. She's traveled throughout the United States, training responders in incident management and in awareness. Is a SHOP 2 TIM training instructor, has been part of the NUG summits that we've had, some of the conferences. She's an active member with the Cumberland Valley Volunteer Fire Association and Responder Safety Institute, and she was appointed to the NFPA, Fire Protection, Traffic Control, Incident Management Professional Qualifications Committee, and now she is, the reason why we have her here today is she sits on the Traffic Incident Management Coalition in Phoenix, and she chairs the they have a formal TIM Awards program, which I think is very cool and unique. We don't do, as a nation, don't do a well enough job recognizing people that also can serve as a motivation factor, I think. These awards are not only recognizing someone that's important, but also can serve, I think, to motivate people. So, and Jeff King is saying that we are so happy to have her in Arizona now. So they're happy they stole you from Texas. So with that, Angela, if you could take it and tell us about your TIM program and the awards program in Arizona. Thanks.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us speak today. And I say us because Jeff King is a good counterpart to have, and he is on here as well. So if I am doing this, I apologize, but my internet connection may come in and out. So if I fade off, then Jeff, I'm hoping he's going to pick it up and take it from there. But I will do my best here. So one thing that we did as a TIM coalition, and I'm going to see if I can advance this slide here. Oh, it did. Okay, good. So if you all can see that, the background of the what we call the Aztec Coalition, it was formed in 2010 following a workshop executive session that was conducted here in Arizona in Glendale, and it was organized by FHWA, what we consider MAG, and of course Aztec. So in doing all of that, the charter was drafted. We signed by participating agencies, which is all government agencies. We have police, DPS, EMS, towing. So a lot of different people, of course, being in our core group meets in Phoenix periodically throughout the year. It's chaired, our coalition is actually chaired by DPS, and most of you, I'm sure, may be familiar with JP or John Paul Cartier. He is actually our chairperson. And again, we have a lot of different disciplines that are part of this coalition. And Jeff, if I forget something, please chime in at any time. But our meetings are bi-monthly, and we do form different committees, and that's how this committee came about for the awards that we are giving out for the first time this year. So when JP says we need to do this, then we form a committee to make these things happen. So this is how this came about here. So the subcommittee was formed, and to develop the recognition, because we feel like, we have a lot of training going on throughout the nation, and we want to make sure that we're recognizing the instructors. It's great to have as many people as we can get trained, and we are all for pushing all of that, but we need to make sure that we're recognizing those trainers that are spending their time and their passion doing all of this work. So when the committee was formed, we decided that it needed to be consistent of 7 different members. That was basically so in case there was a tie, we eliminate, any kind of issues with that. And they're from all over. We have Maricopa County DOT, we have Arizona DOT, DPS, you have towing, you have Jeff that sits on it, and of course JP is also on the committee. So we have different working parts that are also involved in that. It was driven in part by the FHWA stick funds to develop this challenge program, and a challenge coin was actually developed it kind of came like the cart before the horse. So we did the coin first, and then we formed the committee and did the awards after the fact. But it is there's a picture later on in the presentation that shows the challenge coin. So we needed to figure out something we could do with that and how we could recognize and give credit to the instructors that are spending so much time doing these worthwhile classes that we are having. Jeff, am I missing anything?
No, the only thing I would add there is the coins that were developed. The keeper of the coins is Captain Cartier, and he's like a little pit bull, and he won't give those out. To my knowledge, nobody has one. So I really, and I think all of you know how, speaking from at least law enforcement, those are very collectible to get those coins, and pretty much the only way to get them now is through this awards program.
Yes, the committee members don't even have them, so that tells you how strict it is here. So it's like the secret society. So we started off with how we were going to give these awards out by establishing a process. We had to come up with guidelines, and we did this through conference calls because, you know, we're all over the state, and we wanted to make sure that we addressed everything that we thought was pertinent to the instructors that are out there giving the classes. So we established the guidelines. We also said that there had to be different categories because, you know, some, you know, you had a lot of different instructors, but some of them teach, you know, 500 students. Some of them teach 50 students. So we wanted to make sure that we were addressing everything as it came about and the different levels that we felt were necessary. And then we thought, well, we have the challenge coin we can give them, but you know, it's always nice to walk into an office and see a certificate or a plaque hanging on the wall. So we established that also as being coins and certificates being the minimum award, and then plaques are given for additional, like awarded to a lifetime or annual achievement award, because you know this has been going on for a long time, teaching these classes, several years. So we wanted to make sure that we're also including those people who, before this program was established, we're including those people in there as well. So we wanted to make sure we addressed everything, and we have gold and silver trainer recipients also. So then came the 5 award categories, and the form example, I don't know if you actually have, I think we sent the actual form to you. Did you get that, Paul? I'm not sure. But if not, the form will be there for you guys to see. So we have a Lifetime Achievement Award over a span of time, you know, who's done the majority of, you know, the classes, and then you have an Annual Achievement Award, who's doing the most per year as far as the different levels. So we said that there needed to be gold, which was 50 classes, and an average of, you know, if you're doing 10 students per class, then that's, you know, 500 students. Silver would be 25 classes, and then bronze, 10 classes, 100 students. So we wanted to make sure that we were covering the realm, you know, of people, the instructors out there giving the classes.
Angela, if I could jump in just for a
Yes.
moment. The Lifetime Achievement, you only can get that obviously once in a lifetime. And the Annual Award also covers those folks. So there's a lot of hardworking folks behind the scenes that do a lot for a TIM program that aren't necessarily instructors. So that covers the wide range of other things, the organization, you know, the meetings, the things that go on behind the scenes to make the program work the way it works.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes. Let me go on here. So nominations. For the Lifetime and Annual Achievement Awards are nominated by agencies or peers in you know, of the instructors that can submit the nominations. Once they have the form, they can download that off of our TIM Arizona government, website. So it's all on there. They can read it and go through and fill out all of the information. And of course, that's pulled off of the FHWA website for the database for entering the students that you're teaching. It's based on the training numbers in the system, so it's actually forcing the instructors to enter those people in the system. Sometimes we have some people that, go by the wayside and not necessarily may not be entering everything, all of their students in there. And those are the numbers that we need, for data to collect that. The bi-week reports that are sent out, of course, to all the TIM contacts. I know our TIM Coalition gets those as well, so we can see all of the record numbers across the nation that are being taught out there. So in 2019, this year, we're actually going to be awarding 10 training awards. We just had our meeting and went through all of the applications and reviewed those. Out of 71 instructors who have been active, we're going to give out 10 awards. So there are 2 gold awards, 2 silver, and 6 bronze awards that will be going out. And then the achievement award, Jeff, if you want to chime in on that one for, I think that was the annual award, right?
Yeah, the Achievement Award, we still got a couple weeks, and I'm aware of 2 or 3 of those being drafted. The Achievement Award will be decided on based on the awards committee, and the awards committee doesn't necessarily have to award if the application doesn't rise to the level that the committee feels is required, and there'll only be 1 of each given each year. Hey, going back to the rosters, since we announced the nominations, I can't tell you how many people have contacted me with old rosters wanting to know if they could still enter them. So it's really been effective to help support.
Oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
No, it was a great tool. It's I've got some rosters that came in a couple days ago from 2 years ago. And as long as they have the roster, we'll help them get them in.
Jim and I have always said that we know we're not getting all the numbers. Boy, there's proof in the pudding right there, and it's a good way to try to address it. Sorry, Angela, we interrupted you. So.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's great, because that's what this feedback is great to have. Because, I mean, it's a great point that, it can spur people to make them want to do something and get the instructors to enter the stuff. And I have to say I'm one of those that, slacked in a little bit. So I will raise my hand to be accountable for that. But it's all good now. So let me see if I can move on here. I lost connection a second ago. Okay, so the selection of the award recipients, the nominations, of course, are reviewed like we did in our TIM committee. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We reviewed the applications and went through them, and then we determine if the awards arise to the level that we expect. Did they have all the information in there? Only 1 of each award will be given to them each year. Like they can't have a bronze and a lifetime or something like that in there at the same time. So they get 1 award, whichever one that would be that fits the criteria that they meet. And then again, if they don't, then we're not obligated to give an award out of any kind just based on the application. If the numbers don't match, what we're seeing on the application based on what's in the database, if that's not jiving, we can do some, investigation to that to find out, oh, well, maybe they didn't enter something or something's wrong, or they thought they had this many classes, but 1 was left off of the roster or something like that. Then, we can do that, due diligence towards that. Nominations are submitted by a committee. A member of the committee, staff during the national database can also be submitted by agencies or peers. I'm trying to look here. I think my connection's coming in and out. So we talked about the database in that. Jeff, do you have anything on that you want to?
What we did initially for the lifetime and the annual awards are really just based on people who submit the applications. But the training awards, to get that started, we took the spreadsheet that's sent out to us every 2 weeks, and we did the initial run through that and selected our folks. Now, initially when we did it, we had, I think, 8 awards recipients, and then by working with some of the other instructors that were close to the cutoff, we were able to find the other rosters and get them entered. The other thing that, lost my train of thought there, sorry about that. Well, I'll turn it back over to Angela, and by the time she gets done, I'll think of what I was going to tell you.
It gets confusing when you have, 7 different people and you're trying to get together and everyone has a different view of something and how we're best going to come about because, we realize what our ultimate goal was, and that's what you have to start with, how, what you want to get to giving these awards out and the process to lead up to that. So it's great to have good people to work with who have knowledge of how the system works and the database and all the information that is available to you out there when doing this. So the presentation, we had to try to figure out when we would present the awards. We wanted to make it that we just didn't have them come to our TIM Coalition meetings because, as you all know, when you have a committee or a coalition meeting, if you have those, then sometimes they're very well attended, sometimes not. So we wanted to make sure that we were giving the best recognition possible for these instructors out there or the people behind the scenes working towards that. So we thought what a better way to do that than this year during National TIM Awareness Week. So what we are actually doing is we're having a mass training event on November 13th, and we are giving our awards out before the class starts. So these people can be recognized. There'll be an invitation sent out to them to get them to come and participate, and then hopefully, because we of course we want big numbers and we have a lot of government entities there, we want to make sure that the recognition is there. So they get their plaque or their certificate and their challenge coin, and they get the recognition. I know that that's important for a lot of people. If you're doing the work, and some people don't do it for a pat on the back, but some people, it's just an extra added incentive for them to go out and do more classes. And then if we do it in front of all these classes and there's, trainers in there, then they're going to be able to see that, oh, well, I can go for this award then. This is something great. I can add this to my, resume, for lack of a better, thing to say. So during the training event, we're doing that. And, of course, we're going to have media there. And then the agency PIOs will do the actual presentation. So it's going to be a great event. We're hoping we have great big numbers and that we give the instructors the recognition that they do deserve. So, Jeff, did you think about what you were going to say?
Yes, I did. I actually had to bring up a map because I couldn't remember the numbers. One of the things we found, I'm sure a lot of you on the webinar are aware of this if you're watching your instructor numbers and who's training what. As you saw on the earlier slide, there was 10 folks who had done at least 10 classes with at least 100 students. But in the reality, when we look at the numbers in Arizona, and we're hoping to change this through the awards program and awareness, we've actually, if you go back to Jim's map, we have 324 instructors that attended the training since 2012. Now, granted, many of those, like myself, have retired, but I came back and I get to teach every once in a while. Many of them have retired or transferred to a position that doesn't afford them the ability. But out of the 324, since 2012, we only had 79 active instructors. And out of the 79 active instructors, there's only 10 that taught more than 10 classes. That was somewhat eye-opening, and I think we can use that to our benefit in the future to keep folks active and to reach back out to these folks to have them join in, which on November 13th at our mass training event, we'll be doing that. The only other comment that I wanted to make, and I know she's not on the webinar, but I did want to point out one of our very outstanding instructors who's now retired. And the last time I saw a photo of her was about 6 months ago on about a 40-foot boat down in the middle of the Gulf of California, relaxing in a chair. This Courtney Bear was one of our early instructors, and she's taught 79 classes and over 2,000 students. So I just wanted to kind of give her some national recognition for really great accomplishment. And she'll be one of our gold recipients in November.
Okay, we got to move along here, guys. So
okay.
No more senior moments, Mr. King.
That's it.
So,
We're done. So
that was it. Okay, great.
So
Great.
you
Angela,
can actually see the
Yep.
challenge coin that we have right there. So that's it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Angela and Jeff, and a great job you guys are doing. I just think that is fantastic. Finding a way to incentivize your trainers, not only to do the training, but to give us the numbers, which Jim and I are so desperately interested in getting. So thanks very much. So again, save your questions, but please type in if you have any. So the next up is one of my newest best friends, is Ellen Kamalakis, who is a senior public affairs officer with VDOT, Virginia DOT, Northern Virginia, where she publishes the @VDOT Nova Twitter account, as well as covering media relations, operations, emergency communications, and maintenance. She is currently a member of the National Capital Region Incident Management Team and previously worked for Fairfax County for 12 years and the Fairfax County Police Department Office of Emergency Management and the Department of Transportation. So for you normal, quote-unquote, normal routine SIM program managers and participants, these are our next and new great partners, and we have some. We've already starting to see some throughout the country. We had one on the National TIM Responder Week webinar last week to present, and they can be just great partners, and they know how to do the outreach, which most of you are not as. So Ellen, sorry for over talking that, but if you could take it from there, appreciate it.
Sure, and can everybody hear me okay?
Fine, yep.
So I have 3 quick disclaimers, other than the fact that I talk very, very fast, so you guys will have this presentation available to you. So the 3 disclaimers are, this is probably not going to be as sharp as it could be because we literally have just gotten off of 2 back-to-back incidents on a highway of with daily traffic 91,000 cars. So we had a bridge strike, and then in the middle of the bridge strike, we had a hole open up underneath the highway. So we literally opened the lanes like an hour ago. So I'm all keyed up from that. The next is that I have a chauffeur driving. So thank you to Adam. He's controlling my presentation for me, so I'll be saying next repeatedly. And then the third disclaimer is for anybody that has worked in the National Capital Region, we like to talk about the NCR and that we are awesome and we do a great job. So there's some of that in there. So just prepare yourself for some of the NCR self-appreciation. So next slide. So yeah, that's how you can tell it's me ever on an incident scene, because I have my face in my phone all the time. So next. I'm going to talk through basically a case study of an incident that we had in March. And so a little background is that in our district we have 2.2 million residents, which is 25% of the state's population in 4% of the state's counties. We maintain 14,000 lane miles. This incident happened on I-495, which is the Capital Beltway for those who have live outside of the region, and you hear the phrase Beltway bandits and all that kind of stuff. That's us. So this was at the inner loop at the Potomac River, which is the border with Maryland. So the AADT is 116,500 cars for this one segment. For us, rush hour begins around 3, and that's saying that generously. It often starts earlier. And our account has an established practice of live tweeting. So we live tweet snow operations, as you can see by the picture that I've included, pipe replacement, potholing, flood repairs, and now we're doing incidents. Next. So the goals in these kind of scenarios for us are to get the word out, and I say especially influencer accounts. Everybody knows the heavy hitters in their region that have an excessive number of followers. So the more that you can get them to share, the larger your megaphone is going to be. Oh, I'm sorry, is somebody else talking? Okay. And then I think, has everybody muted their line?
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
No,
that sounds like Angela. Yeah, Angela, mute your line, Angela.
Okay, so media are going to be influencer accounts. We have partner agencies and jurisdictions. as well as elected officials. It's important to provide accurate information at all times, and all the PIOs on this call are going to understand that. Manage expectations in terms of how long it's going to be and what your impacts are going to be. Be relatable, responsive, empathetic, and lighthearted. People are less likely to yell at you if they think you're their friend, and they'll see you as their friend if you act like a human being. Show things that aren't normally seen, explain the process and work of your people, humanize your agency and personnel, and just have fun. So next slide, we're going to get this started. Luckily for this incident, the beauty of dash cams exist. So we have that caught on camera. So watch the tanker in the middle of the screen. There it goes. So we had almost instant shot of what had happened. So next. So we start out, I get a call from the operations center, and they said, okay, all right, this is a problem. It was about 1:55 in the afternoon, and we showed a terrible screenshot, which is like 5 pixels for our traffic cameras. And to sort of set the expectation of our operations center called saying it was likely that there was a hazmat, but until somebody's there on my team to verify that, that's all hearsay. But I knew that the lanes were going to be closed, so I said, basically, heads up, that's about to happen. So next slide. So this is then very shortly after, all right, everything's closed. So we put that tweet out. The next one, in case you want to see just how close this was, where this happened, the tanker fell right at the very edge of the Jersey barrier, and the water is at the Potomac River, and the bridge basically is Maryland. So a couple more feet, it wouldn't have been our issue. And then this is Henry's Wrecker on Twitter, and they were actually the ones to help us out. And as you can see, next slide, the cab was already ready to start sliding down the hill into the Potomac. If it was just a little bit farther, it would have been terrible. So we get an assessment that it is carrying 8,500 gallons of gasoline. It is full. It is absolutely full. Next slide. This is what a multi-agency jurisdictional response looks like in the National Capital Region. This was not even all the apparatus that showed up, but it's a great shot of every single flavor of apparatus possible was there, and every single thing had a purpose. Next slide. So one of our first responses is the this is fine GIF. So I put this in here to explain, for those of you who are not on social, are not down with the memes, there's an origin to that, and that is the little dog below who's sitting in the house on fire, and he's in complete denial going, oh yeah, this is fine. So next to it is our Potomac Mill sign that almost 2 years ago we got bent in 70-mile-an-hour winds and was in possibly going to fall on our interstate, so we had a closure for the weekend for the interstate, and we got that meme. Somebody made that meme for us as well. So people are being lighthearted, but also acknowledging that this is going to be horrible. So next slide. I use code words on Twitter, friends if I'm happy and folks if I'm irritated. So when I start calling people folks, it's because people are doing things that I don't want them to do. And what was happening is they were not letting responders through. And they were not letting responders through. We're not talking amber lights. We're talking blue and red. And it was beyond infuriating. So here goes the first, your National Capital Region responders, yay us, trying to explain to people, until you can get out of the way for our guys to get there, and gals, it's not going to get cleared up. So next slide. So the first thing that I want to be seeing is this, which is all of our partner agencies, whether it be area toll providers, law enforcement, localities, AAA, the media, they're all picking it up, and they're all helping to amplify the message that this is what's happening. So, so when I heard the 8,500 gallons, and I got a call from a couple of our incident management coordinators saying, well, one's already there, and we're sending our spill trailers. We almost never deploy the spill trailers. So on a personal note, one of our incident management coordinators had already put in his notice to retire and leave, and so this was my last opportunity to spend time with him. So I said, well, I'm going to come along and I'm going to live tweet. So I was out the door. So next slide. So it's basically the announcement, hey, we're live tweeting, and that's how we start everything out is we're on, we're live, this is what we're going to be talking about, let's go. Content is absolutely never planned. It's sometimes not well thought out, but it is never planned, and it's spontaneous, and it's interactive the entire time. So letting people know we're there. Next slide. Which is, of course, a statement immediately that people have come to expect from us that we are going to live tweet these things. So, and letting us know that we have a captive audience, which is to be sensitive to those that are stuck in traffic. So next slide. So here's the shot. Okay, guys, you can see the tough book. You can see we're on our way. You know, we're ready to go, and this is where we're at. They did get people over so that they were simply flushing the queue out. I didn't want any misinformation about traffic moving and having people think that they can get on the interstate. So it was important for us to keep reiterating that this is not open. This is not going to be open. It's not going to be open at all today. So that was one of the things that we definitely stayed on message about, was not putting a time frame other than you're not getting on the bridge today. Next slide. So we had to take an alternate route because the Beltway was backed up. So we're on the Dulles Toll Road, of course, tagging our partners to let them know as well that, you know, get them involved in the process as well. Next slide. This, I like to illustrate all of our current conditions, and this is the hole that we squeezed through. And it was, for me, terrifying at times because I have not taken EVOC training, nor do I consider myself an EVOC level driver. But the incident management coordinator who was driving was amazing and got us through. But it gives people the idea of this is what you're giving us to work with to get through to the scene to bring needed items. So next slide. And we took a little tiny video of what it was like, obviously driving on the shoulder. Adam, is the video playing for you on your end? There we go. So this is a poor example because the shoulders were open. The shoulders are almost never open for us. So it kind of sets, you know, the wrong expectation that, you know, people are cooperative in terms of working together on their incidents. So we had that. Next slide. We had a couple sort of groupings of traffic that we had to get through because what we did was end up closing off several ramps on the way and several on-ramps, several off-ramps. So as we're getting through, we're hitting pockets of traffic that needed to get back off, and cones were being set up. And then here's my plug for Amber Lights. A good example of what happens when you're bouncing around in a truck is you make a lot of typos. So there are typos in my tweet. Next slide. Here we are driving very intensely. I'll just leave it at that. And you can see that Fairfax County Police and Virginia State Police have already they've already closed the ramp off. So giving props to our IMC. Next slide. So this is the first one when I was physically on the incident scene, and I wanted to show that, yes, we were indeed flushing out the queue, took a quick video of that, posted it, actually almost immediately got comments back of people that had been behind that Swift truck, and they were not too kind about him not letting people merge. So it becomes a little community conversation on all of the comments that you can see. Next slide. This, of course, is the nice comments that we get along the way of, oh, wow, I didn't realize you were out there, I should pay attention, kind of thing. Next slide. For anybody who's ever heard me speak before, you know that towing is very important to me, and big trucks are very important to me. So to walk on scene and to see two giant rotator trucks was just the cherry on top for me, knowing that I can show images of equipment this big and this specialized to give credibility to we're taking this seriously. We have a lot of stuff out here that you wouldn't think that we have out here, and don't worry, you're in safe hands. Next slide. So this is one of the very small groupings of responders that were there, and we've got transportation, we've got towing, we've got different police, different fire, all this kind of stuff grouping together in with the incident commander, getting assignments, and moving over into our actual roles that we're going to be doing. So again, NCR region, we're awesome, yay for us, and they were responders from Maryland, D.C., and Virginia on every plane of existence. So we were all out there with one goal. Next slide. We had a relatively new tiller truck in Fairfax County that came out, so I was very excited about, has anybody seen a tiller truck? Because these things are huge. I try to have a personality. I try to show excitement and interest in the things that I'm showing, which creates a better tone for it. Next slide. So basically saying, all right, the queue's flushed. That's it. No one's waiting. Everyone is out. They're off the interstate, and here's where the real work is going to be done. Next slide. We were lucky to have our Virginia Department of Emergency Management come out with their drone with their 4K imagery and get up and get flying and getting a different perspective. Next slide. So this is one of our regulars, and instantly he wants to see the drone footage. So they have no problem voicing what their interests are and showing that they're engaged. Next slide. I just find it amazing to be standing on a closed interstate, and just the shot of our Maryland responders within Virginia, to me, was just very telling of how well everybody was playing together. Next slide. We've got more people that are then translating what we're saying, what needs to be getting out there. So that's great. Next slide. Personalizing is very important to me. I want people to know that the people on scene are real. These are our tow truck drivers. They're real. They're real people. They're super awesome. They're super skilled. Look at their faces, feel confident that they're people, and we're going to get it done. So another reiteration of the equality between amber, blue, and red in terms of moving over. Next slide. Obviously, somebody from the towing community. Excited to see their people. Next slide. So we've got ladder trucks, and we've got drone footage, and we got Stinger tubes, and we're ready to go. Next slide. This is what I want. I want people to be realizing that those involved in this are heroes. The dangerous work that they're going to be doing to move 8,500 gallons of gasoline on the edge of a bridge is just amazing, and I'm super proud of them. Next slide. Having people understand that when you have 8,500 gallons that need to be offloaded, it has to go somewhere, and we have to find that somewhere that it's going to go, and here was finally the relief tanker that we were able to get after calling through a lot of different options that would have taken us many, many more hours for it to arrive. Next slide. This is what it's like to stand on a closed interstate. And then, of course, our followers all have really great senses of humor, so they add in their comments to it. Next slide. This was one of the funniest moments for me, was the spontaneous conversation between our followers, which is, what's the tanker leaking, and somebody saying his will to live, which I just thought was the funniest thing. Next slide. Thanks for keeping it lighthearted. Yeah, absolutely. I know that you're stuck in traffic, and I am not stuck in traffic. I'm here, and I've got everything I need, and I'm around people that I'm enjoying this. So I'm going to make this as enjoyable for you and as helpful for you as possible. Next slide. So, hey, what's in the spill trailers? Let me use this time while I have a captive audience to be able to educate people about what we have as resources. Yodox. I'm big about telling people to Google things. I had to tell people to Google what flowable fill was today to see how we were fixing the interstate. Next slide. And one of our regulars saying that she got the results of a Yodoc being a Korean prison camp and not being sure that that's what we had. So I had to insist that that was not the case. Next slide. This was a response that my first comment saying that this is a career highlight for me. One of the responses to me was, well, I'm glad you're using this to pad your resume. So I had to clarify that, no, this is a privilege for me to be around this group in this kind of incident, and so I am able to defend myself in these scenarios. Next slide. This is the beauty of working around people that are comfortable with you, is I can pose them for shots that I want, and this is 100% exactly the entire story I wanted to tell in one photo. Next slide. Somebody who knows what's going on. Hey, don't be fooled. Managing those expectations. The truck still needs to pump it off into the new one. You still have a while. This affirmation of our level of incident response was great. It was awesome. Next slide. This is a sister district saying, hey, if you're heading up into our sister district, there's something going on. Pay attention to them. Next slide. There's always someone that has a solution to your problem, which was push a tanker filled with 8,500 gallons of fuel, scrape it along the interstate, and push it off onto the side of the bridge, and everything should be fine. So next slide. Again, everybody else is jumping in saying, oh, that's not a good idea. Next slide. We've got the record company weighing in. We've got somebody who has experience previously saying, reiterating, this is why this is taking so long. This is normal. They're not taking too long. This is normal. This is a huge thing. Next slide, with a little bit of foreshadowing, because we had traffic moving in the other direction, but it was very congested. So next slide. It's congested because people are taking pictures. Not only is the passenger taking a photo, the driver is. So I, of course, am going to call people out on these kind of things so that everyone else realizes the things that we see when we're on these incident scenes. Next slide, of course, everybody's reactions to it, appreciating us calling people out, being real about acknowledging the issue of people constantly taking photos. Next slide. This was our one hiccup, was when the fire department referenced completing the operation in the next 2 hours. So the media got an idea that it was 10 p.m. Okay, so they're saying 10 p.m. this is going to be open, 10 p.m. No. They were referring to one segment of the operation and not the entire lane clearing. It did not clear until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I ended up having to chase down and correct a lot of, it's not going to be 10 p.m. It's not going to be 10 p.m. We're not naming a time. We're not naming a time. Next slide.
Hey, Ellen?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I only have 5 minutes, and it's not your fault because everyone went long today. But can you wrap it up in a couple of more minutes? So we.
Oh yeah. I'm nearing the very end. Yeah.
Okay.
So are people still stuck there? Obviously, a reporter saying, nope, we did a great job. Next slide, some scenes as it turned into evening time. Next slide, somebody asking if we had a canteen truck, so I went and took a picture of the canteen truck, interacting with him. Next slide, I always like to show these to my boss whenever somebody tells me to give me a raise, so I include this in there. Next slide. There was a reporter there, and he was persistent, and I simply went to him and said, what do you want? And he said, I just want images. So I went and I took images. I airdropped it onto his phone. There you go. Credit us. You're done. And the pressure was off in terms of our interacting on scene with the media. Next slide. Is it going to be closed for the morning? No, it's actually not. Next slide. This is a video that I took to show the size of the incident scene. And I took it as time-lapse. It might not necessarily show that well on here, but it was a time-lapse of just how long and how many vehicles were there, so that people got a concept of what we got ourselves a little city going on here. Next slide. So people are happy. The next slide. Concerned with the crews. Have they gotten a break? Thank them. The next slide, we appreciate first responders. This is great. The next slide was when I was being driven back to a police escort. I said, why are the reflectors red? And it's because we were going the wrong way on the interstate, and I never knew that. So I said, well, this is really cool. I'm going to take this video. And again, as a learning experience. So then the next slide, everybody thinks it's hysterical that they didn't know about the red reflectors on the Beltway. Next slide. More thanks from different people around the region. Next slide. Emphasis on this being Tim's training. This is why it's important. Everybody, there's not a complaint in the bunch. And again, you know, kudos to the National Capital Region. Next slide was funny. My husband is stuck here for 5 hours and he's cranky. I think I'm entitled to financial compensation. And this guy's triggered, worrying that there's going to be another tanker. And actually, there wasn't another incident a week later. We dubbed it Beltway Thursdays, but we won't get into that one. Next slide. You know, fantastic job. Next slide is going to be the next day, them fixing the guardrail. And then the next slide is the resolution, who was charged, what he was charged for. And last slide, these are metrics. So out of 76 tweets that I put out and replies, we ended up having almost 500,000 impressions on them. So successful. That's the end of my presentation.
Wow.
Back
That's
over
great.
to you.
Thanks for flying through that. That's great. You know, you can everyone see what the benefit of having someone that's an expert in marketing and outreach and especially for a major incident like that. I mean, that's just so cool. We had a lot of unique presentations today, and I think it's been great. So, yep. Who's someone trying to chime in? Hello. You know, we don't have anyone has a few questions. We have a few minutes. We could probably go over a few, but if there's no questions, we could always follow up with anybody that has questions. And a reminder that, you know, if you have any unique presentations, people have started to reach out to me if they think they have something they could share with the rest of the nation. Sometimes I see them, like I ran into Ellen at National Incident Response Awareness Week. At the ITS America Responder Day, and I thought that would be cool. Angela, I forgot how I did, and John reached out to me and said, what about this topic? So we have other topics, but we'd like to hear from you as well. I'm already working on next month's topics. I'm not prepared to share them yet because I haven't confirmed presenters, but we'll share that with you very quickly, within the next few days. And but I don't see any questions.
Paul?
Yes?
Paul, this is Jim. Real quick, I got to put in a plug. You already did. Ellen Kamalakis, VDOT Senior Public Information Officer. She is extraordinary, and I know other states have similar people, I'm sure. But Paul and I are promoting her for obvious reasons. This is what all states need to do. If you have one, great. Introduce him or her to us. But Ellen and the whole entire VDOT team, yes, we're biased here around the National Capital Region right here. So,
well, you know what I find impressive is you have a PIO who knows the top. She knew the trucks. She knew what she was talking about. So it just wasn't some regular PIO. She was part of the team. She was part of the response team, which is
and Paul,
really
she's only scratched the surface. She is just so talented and phenomenal, and we really thank her and thank everyone.
Absolutely, as were all our presenters today. And so with that, we're 1 minute over. We're sorry we ran a little long, but I think that they were all excellent and well worth the time. And of course, we look forward. Next month is going to be on the 30th. You'll hear from us shortly about what the agenda is.